Welcome to the UPSC News Analysis for 23rd in April 2025. This deep dive breaks down key current affairs, explains basic concepts, and highlights main relevant issues all tailored for UPSC aspirants. Today, we're looking at a wide array of important stories, from a boost in financial support for minority communities and India's firm stance on the crucial matter of climate finance, to the exciting possibilities of Hyperloop technology and a significant judicial review of our sedition law. We'll also explore ISRO's next giant leap in lunar exploration, important shifts in how our cooperative banks are regulated, the well-deserved recognition of traditional Indian crafts, and a digital upgrade for Karnataka's farmers.
Quite a lot to cover.
Plus, we'll touch on some significant geopolitical developments and a global health challenge that demands our attention. It's quite a spectrum, offering plenty to unpack for your UPSC prep. Let's get started.
It certainly is a comprehensive set of topics, and as you pointed out, all holding relevance for those preparing for the UPSC examination. What strikes me is how these seemingly disparate issues often intersect. It really highlights the complexity of governance and policymaking today.
Absolutely. Let's begin with the Ministry of Minority Affairs announcement on April 22, 2025. They announced a 30% increase in budget allocation for direct benefit transfer schemes aimed at minority communities.
Yeah.
Now, for those who might appreciate a quick grounding, what exactly is DBT? And when we refer to minority communities in India, who are we talking about?
Right. Direct benefit transfer, or DBT, well, in its simplest form, it's the direct transfer of government benefits or subsidies straight into the bank accounts of eligible beneficiaries.
Okay.
Think of it as cutting out the middlemen to ensure that the intended recipients get the support directly. It's supposed to be more efficient. And in the Indian context, the officially recognized minority communities, as per the National Commission for Minorities Act of 1992, are Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, Parsis, and Jains. The Ministry of Minority Affairs is the central government body tasked with formulating policies and programs for their socioeconomic advancement and, well, overall welfare.
Got it. And this increased financial allocation is specifically channeled towards schemes focusing on education and skill development. We're talking about post-matric scholarships, merit-cum-mean scholarships, and the Nye Manzil scheme for skill enhancement. What do you see as the primary motivations behind this significant budgetary boost?
Well, several factors likely contribute to this decision. The ministry itself cited improved digital infrastructure and the effectiveness of Aadhaar-linked DBT systems, suggesting, greater confidence in reaching beneficiaries directly and reducing leakages. Furthermore, in the past, there have been discussions around the need for more effective utilization of funds allocated for minority welfare. So this 30% increase could be a concerted effort to expand the reach and ensure the timely disbursement of crucial benefits.
Makes sense. So for our listeners preparing for prelims, what are the key welfare schemes under this DBT umbrella that should be on their radar?
It's a fairly extensive list, actually, covering various stages of education and skill enhancement. Beyond the post-matric scholarships, which support students from Class 11 up to the PhD level, and the merit-cum-mean scholarships for those in technical and professional courses. There's Nye Udaan. Yeah, that provides financial assistance for coaching for competitive exams like the UPSC itself.
Oh, interesting.
Then there's Nye Manzil, which focuses on integrated education and skill training for school dropouts, while SICO or Kamau is specifically aimed at skill development for minority youth. And lastly, Padho Pardes offers interest subsidies on education loans for students pursuing overseas studies. So these schemes collectively aim to address a wide range of needs within the minority communities.
That's quite comprehensive. The DBT system itself, though, it's a significant shift in how governance operates, isn't it? When did this system come into being and how has it evolved?
The DBT system was formally introduced back in 2013, but its widespread adoption really gained traction with the strengthening of what's known as the JAM Trinity.
The JAM Trinity. Janhan, Aadhaar, mobile.
Exactly. Jantan bank accounts, Aadhaar unique identification, and mobile connectivity. This convergence provided the essential infrastructure to facilitate large-scale direct transfers, and that led to greater efficiency in delivering government benefits by minimizing duplication and ensuring, a more targeted reach.
Right. Now, when we discuss providing specific support to minority communities, our Constitution lays down certain guiding principles. Can you elaborate on the relevant constitutional provisions here?
Certainly. Articles 15.4 of the Indian Constitution are key here. They empower the state to make special provisions for the advancement of any socially and educationally backward classes of citizens,
Okay.
which constitutionally includes minority communities. This forms the bedrock, really, for affirmative action policies and the design of targeted welfare schemes aimed at addressing historical disadvantages.
Shifting our focus to the Maine's perspective then, beyond just understanding the schemes themselves, what are some of the broader socioeconomic implications and challenges associated with this enhanced DBT initiative?
That's crucial for Maine's. It's vital to understand the underlying context, the structural inequalities that minority communities often face in accessing quality education and employment opportunities. Now, while DBT is a potent tool to address these, its effectiveness isn't, well, guaranteed. We need to consider the level of awareness about these schemes within the communities themselves. Are people even aware they exist?
Good point.
And the digital divide remains a significant hurdle in many parts of the country, potentially limiting the reach of DBT. Moreover, the efficiency of implementation can vary considerably across different states, and practical issues like Aadhaar-related authentication failures, well, they can inadvertently exclude genuine beneficiaries.
These are critical points to consider. So who are the primary beneficiaries we're looking at here, and what could be the wider societal impact if this works well?
The immediate beneficiaries are clearly the students, young people, and school dropouts from the designated minority communities. However, the broader societal impact could be substantial. By improving educational attainment and enhancing skills, these schemes have the potential to contribute to more inclusive economic growth, improve socioeconomic indicators within these communities, and ultimately, a more equitable and prosperous nation as a whole.
And from a critical standpoint, while DBT aims for transparency, are there any potential limitations or areas where we need to exercise caution?
Well, while DBT significantly enhances transparency by cutting out intermediaries, its success is definitely contingent on robust mechanisms for grievance redressal.
Right.
And ensuring last-mile connectivity, both in terms of digital access and physical banking infrastructure, and proactive measures to address issues like Aadhaar seeding errors. These are vital. The emphasis on minimum government, maximum governance through such direct transfers is laudable, but the real impact will be determined by the efficiency and responsiveness of the delivery systems on the ground.
So what concrete steps could be taken to further optimize the effectiveness of this enhanced DBT for minority communities? What's the way forward?
Several targeted interventions could be highly beneficial. Intensifying community-level awareness campaigns using various media channels is crucial. People need to know about these opportunities and how to access them. Developing user-friendly, multilingual mobile applications and web portals can help bridge that digital literacy gap we talked about.
Okay.
Establishing robust, real-time monitoring dashboards will allow for better tracking of fund utilization and identification of bottlenecks. Creating community-based helplines and support centers can assist beneficiaries with any issues they encounter. And finally, forging partnerships with trusted community organizations, including NGOs and even religious institutions like madrasas, can significantly improve outreach and build trust within the communities.
This provides us with a very comprehensive understanding of the enhanced DBT for minorities. It's clearly relevant for both prelims, touching on polity, economy, schemes, and governance, and for mains, especially GS Paper 2 concerning welfare schemes.
Definitely. Shall we move on to our next significant development? India's expression of disappointment at the Petersburg Climate Dialogue on April 22nd.
Yes, climate finance, a recurring and critical issue.
It is. The crux of the issue revolves around the long-standing commitment of climate finance from developed nations. For her listeners, could you briefly outline what climate finance is and why the Petersburg Dialogue holds significance?
Sure. At its core, climate finance refers to the financial resources that developed countries have pledged to provide to developing nations. This is to support their efforts in reducing emissions and adapting to the impacts of climate change. This commitment is enshrined in the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, the UNFCCC, from way back in 1992, and it was further solidified in the Paris Agreement of 2015. The Petersburg Climate Dialogue is an annual, high-level informal gathering hosted by Germany. It brings together environment ministers to foster consensus and address critical issues before the big annual COP summits.
Precisely. And at this recent dialogue, India voiced some key concerns. What were the main points highlighted by the Indian delegation?
India's primary concern, and it's a recurring theme as you said, was the persistent failure of developed nations to deliver on their promise of mobilizing $100 billion annually in climate finance. That target was for 2020.
Still hasn't been met.
Exactly. India called for a clear and transparent roadmap detailing how this unmet commitment will finally be realized, as well as a framework for a new, more ambitious financial goal beyond this initial pledge. Furthermore, India emphasized the urgent need for simplified and streamlined access to these funds, apparently were often bogged down by complex bureaucratic processes,
Right.
and they underscored the fundamental principles of equity and CBDRRC.
Common, but differentiated responsibilities and respective capabilities. That's key to India's position.
Absolutely.
For our prelims audience, it would be beneficial to recall some of the key institutions that channel climate finance globally.
Good idea. Some of the prominent entities include the Green Climate Fund, GCF, the Global Environment Facility, GEF, the Adaptation Fund, and the Climate Investment Funds, CIFs. And that $100 billion commitment, it originated at the Copenhagen COP15 back in 2009 and was subsequently reaffirmed within the Paris Agreement. Its aim is to assist developing countries in both mitigation and adaptation efforts.
India's stance on climate finance is consistent with the broader concerns of many developing nations, isn't it?
Right.
Could you summarize the core tenets of their argument?
Yeah, India consistently argues that developed nations bearing historical responsibility for the majority of cumulative greenhouse gas emissions have a greater obligation to provide substantial financial and technological support.
The historical responsibility argument.
Exactly. They also strongly advocate that this climate finance should primarily be in the form of grants, not loans, to avoid further burdening developing economies with debt.
Crucial point.
And alongside financial aid, the transfer of environmentally sound technologies is considered equally critical.
Yeah.
The principles of CBDRRC and the importance of nationally determined contributions, or NDCs, each country's climate targets are central to India's negotiating position.
Shifting our attention to the mains perspective now, what are the underlying challenges and issues surrounding climate finance that India and other developing nations are grappling with?
Well, the fundamental context is that India, like many developing countries, is particularly vulnerable to climate change, impacts extreme weather, rising sea levels, you name it,
Right.
and requires significant external financial and technological assistance to transition towards a low-carbon path and enhance adaptive capacity. However, the actual disbursement of pledged climate finance has been slow, often lacks transparency in accounting, and as we mentioned, tends to lean towards loans rather than grants.
And the access issue.
Yes, the complex and often cumbersome procedures for accessing these funds also present a major obstacle, contributing to a palpable lack of trust between developed and developing nations in the whole climate negotiation process.
Who are the key players in this intricate arena of climate finance? Obviously developing and developed nations, but who else?
Well, you have the developing countries advocating for climate justice and fulfillment of commitments, then the developed nations juggling international obligations and domestic priorities, but also multilateral development banks and an increasing number of private sector entities are involved in mobilizing and channeling climate finance. It's a complex ecosystem.
And from a critical analysis standpoint, what role do platforms like the Petersburg Dialogue play in actually addressing these challenges? Can they move the needle?
The Petersburg Dialogue, despite being informal, serves as a vital platform for ministers to have candid discussions and try to bridge divides before the more politically charged COPs. However, without tangible financial commitments and concrete mechanisms for technology transfer, the ideals of climate justice can often feel like abstract principles, especially to the nations most vulnerable to climate change impacts.
So looking ahead, what potential pathways exist to overcome the current impasse on climate finance? What's the way forward here?
One crucial step is to advocate for legally binding financial commitments for developed countries within the UNFCCC framework, particularly leading up to COP29.
Legally binding, that would be a major shift.
It would. Enhancing transparency and establishing standardized accounting methodologies for climate finance flows are also essential. We need to know where the money is actually going.
Right.
Strengthening South-South cooperation, where developing countries share expertise and resources like the India-led International Solar Alliance can play a significant role too. And finally, promoting innovative financial instruments like green bonds and sovereign climate funds could help mobilize additional capital for climate action.
This clearly highlights the critical relevance of climate finance for UPSC preparation. It intersects with environment, international organizations, climate initiatives for prelims.
And for mains, It's directly applicable to GS Paper 3 on environment and climate change, as well as GS Paper 2 on international relations, given the geopolitical dimensions.
Definitely. Okay, our next topic takes us from global negotiations to something potentially groundbreaking right here in India. On April 22nd, the Prime Minister inaugurated India's first Hyperloop test track near Pune. For those of us envisioning something out of sci-fi, can you explain the fundamentals of Hyperloop technology?
Sure. Hyperloop is an envisioned ultra-high-speed transportation system. Imagine passenger or cargo pods traveling through partially evacuated tubes.
Partially evacuated, like low pressure.
Exactly, at speeds potentially exceeding 1,000 kilometers per hour.
Wow.
This is made possible by a combination of magnetic levitation, or maglev, which eliminates friction between the pod and the track.
Ah, like some high-speed trains already use. Precisely. And the near vacuum environment within the tubes, which drastically reduces air resistance. Think of it like a high-speed train inside a giant straw with most of the air sucked out.
Okay, that's a helpful analogy. It sounds incredibly ambitious. And this project in Pune is a collaborative effort, isn't it?
Yes, this initiative is a partnership between IIT Madras, a leading research institution, and a private consortium. The inaugurated test track spans 15 kilometers and will initially focus on testing the movement of cargo.
Cargo first, makes sense.
Yeah, the long-term vision includes extending the technology for passenger travel with a target of achieving commercial operations by 2030. This project also aligns strategically with the government's Make in India in Mobility initiative and the National Logistics Policy, underscoring a commitment to indigenous tech and more efficient transport networks.
So for our prelims-focused listeners, what are the key aspects of Hyperloop technology that they should keep in mind?
For prelims, it's important to remember the core principles: the potential for very high speeds, its energy efficiency and sustainability aspects, including possibly integrating renewables.
Hmm.
Also, note the key players involved: IIT Madras, Ministries Railways, and IAA, and be aware of similar global projects like Virgin Hyperloop One, Transpod, Zelaros.
Right, it's not just India exploring this.
No, and link it to the overarching policy frameworks like the National Infrastructure Pipeline, NIP, PM Gati Shakti, and the National Logistics Policy 2022.
Turning our attention to the mains analysis, what are the underlying needs and potential benefits that Hyperloop aims to address within the Indian context? Why pursue this?
Well, India's logistics sector faces challenges like relatively high costs and transit times, which impacts our economic competitiveness. Rapid urbanization and the increasing demand for both passenger and freight movement necessitate exploring faster, more efficient, and ideally, environmentally friendly transport alternatives. Hyperloop offers the potential to significantly cut travel times between major economic centers and lower logistics costs, thereby boosting economic activity.
However, such a technologically advanced project must come with its own set of challenges and concerns, especially in a country like India. What are some of these hurdles?
Absolutely. The initial capital investment required is substantial. That's a big one. And its long-term economic viability and adaptability to diverse Indian terrains need thorough assessment.
Land acquisition, too, I imagine.
Huge issue. Land acquisition for the extensive tube networks is likely to be a significant hurdle. Safety protocols and standardization are paramount, especially for passengers, and a comprehensive regulatory framework specifically for vacuum tube transport. Well, it doesn't exist yet.
Right, uncharted territory legally.
Exactly. Plus, the energy demands, the environmental impact of construction and operation, and maintaining that near vacuum over long distances presents considerable technical challenges.
Beyond the hurdles, what are the potential broader implications if Hyperloop technology is successfully implemented in India?
The implications are potentially transformative. Significantly reduced travel times could reshape how people live and work, fostering connectivity, maybe even decongesting urban centers.
Okay.
It would give a substantial boost to R&D in advanced mobility tech, potentially creating high-skilled jobs and fostering innovation domestically. Successfully pioneering this could also position India as a global leader in futuristic transport.
There's also been some critical perspectives suggesting that perhaps the huge resources needed for Hyperloop might be better spent upgrading existing networks, like railways. What are your thoughts on that?
That's a valid point of discussion. Some argue that given India's existing infrastructure gaps and the vast railway network we already have, focusing on modernizing and expanding that might offer more immediate and widespread benefits to more people. The cost-benefit analysis and the suitability of Hyperloop for India's specific geographical and socioeconomic conditions are really important factors. It's about optimizing resource allocation for the greatest overall impact.
So what might be some practical steps forward for India in its pursuit of Hyperloop technology? What's needed now?
A dedicated regulatory framework is essential safety standards,
Yeah.
operational aspects. That needs to be developed.
Right.
Encouraging public-private partnerships can help share the financial burden and leverage private sector expertise. Continued investment in indigenous R&D is crucial to adapt the tech to Indian conditions and maybe bring down costs. A phased approach, maybe focusing on cargo first, as they're doing, seems prudent. And finally, ensuring seamless integration with existing multimodal transport hubs will be key to maximizing its efficiency and accessibility if it comes online.
This gives us a good overview of the Hyperloop initiative, relevant for prelims under SciTech, schemes, infrastructure, and for mains in GS Paper 3 covering infrastructure, innovation, SciTech, mobility.
Indeed. Our next significant news item concerns a matter of law and fundamental rights. On April 22nd, the Supreme Court agreed to re-examine the validity of Section 124A of the IPC sedition by constituting a constitution bench. For our listeners who may not have a legal background, could you explain what sedition actually entails under Indian law?
Sure. Section 124A of the Indian Penal Code defines sedition as any words, spoken or written, signs, representations, or otherwise, which brings or attempts to bring into hatred or contempt or excites or attempts to excite disaffection towards the government established by law in India.
Disaffection.
Quite broad. It's a non-bailable offense and carries a potential punishment ranging from life imprisonment down to 3 years, plus a fine.
And what are the primary reasons prompting the Supreme Court to revisit the constitutional validity of this law now? Why this re-examination?
The decision stems from growing concerns voiced by various sections of society, civil liberties advocates, legal scholars, commentators, regarding its potential for misuse. Critics argue this colonial-era law is increasingly used by authorities to suppress legitimate dissent and stifle freedom of speech and expression, which are, fundamental to our democracy.
The chilling effect argument.
Exactly. Several petitions challenged its validity on those grounds. By referring it to a constitution bench that's 5 or more judges, the court signals the significant constitutional questions involved and the need for a comprehensive reevaluation. The Union government has also been asked for its stance.
From a prelims perspective, what are the key historical and legal aspects of this law that aspirants should be familiar with?
Okay, key things for prelims. Remember, Section 124A was introduced by the British in 1870, mainly to suppress dissent against colonial rule. Landmark judgments. Kedarnath Singh versus State of Bihar, 1962. The court upheld it, but narrowed its scope, saying it should only apply to incitement to violence or intention to cause public disorder.
Right, the incitement to violence test.
Yes. Also, recall Shreyas Singhal versus Union of India, 2015. Emphasized free speech, struck down Section 66A of the IT Act, not directly sedition, but relevant context on free speech. Link this to Article 19.2 of the Constitution, which permits reasonable restrictions on free speech for specific reasons like security of the state, public order, and globally there's a trend in many democracies to either repeal or significantly amend sedition laws, seeing them as outdated.
Turning our attention to the mains perspective, what are the core issues and challenges surrounding the application and interpretation of the sedition law in contemporary India?
Well, the background itself is key for mains, its colonial origins, its use against independence leaders like Gandhi and Tilak, raising questions about its relevance today. Core issues revolve around its inherent vagueness, which critics say lends itself to potential misuse against critical views. This creates that chilling effect on free speech and dissent. There's an ongoing debate. Where's the line between legitimate criticism of speech that genuinely threatens national security or public order?
A difficult line to draw.
Very. And the implementation on the ground has often been criticized as being arbitrary and disproportionate.
Who are the key stakeholders in this ongoing debate, and what are the potential ramifications of the Supreme Court's reexamination?
Primary stakeholders are the citizens of India. Their fundamental right to free speech is at stake. The media, civil society organizations, often face charges, so they're key. The government and law enforcement have an interest in maintaining security and order. And the judiciary, as guardian of the Constitution, plays the crucial role of interpretation. Potential outcomes could be far-reaching, maybe a more precise definition, stricter safeguards against misuse, or even a recommendation for repeal or significant amendment.
Considering these issues, what might be some constructive ways forward regarding the sedition law in India?
A comprehensive review, keeping democratic norms and international practices in mind, is essential. There's a strong need for clearer, more precise definitions to reduce ambiguity and prevent arbitrary application. Implementing mandatory procedural safeguards, maybe mandatory judicial oversight early on, could help prevent misuse. Raising awareness among law enforcement about the Supreme Court's limitations from Kedarnath Singh is also crucial.
Right, ensuring the existing guidelines are followed.
Exactly. And many argue for seriously considering either repealing Section 124A altogether, aligning with global trends, or substantially amending it to fit contemporary free speech understandings while still addressing genuine threats through other existing laws.
This clearly underscores the significant relevance of this topic for UPSC. Prelims, Polity, Constitution, Fundamental Rights, IPC mains. GS Paper 2, Governance, Constitution, Judiciary, Fundamental Rights. A very important one.
Absolutely. Okay, our next piece of news takes us back to space exploration. On April 22nd, ISRO made an exciting announcement. The launch date for India's ambitious Chandrayaan-4 mission is set for December 2025. For our listeners, could you provide a brief overview of India's Chandrayaan program so far and the significance of this upcoming mission?
Sure. India's Chandrayaan program represents our nation's really significant strides in lunar exploration. Chandrayaan-1, back in 2008, was groundbreaking, found evidence of water molecules on the moon.
A major discovery.
Huge. Chandrayaan-2 in 2019 successfully deployed its orbiter, which is still sending back valuable data, though the lander unfortunately had a hard landing. And most recently, Chandrayaan-3 in 2023 achieved that historic soft landing near the moon's south pole, making India only the fourth country to do so.
A proud moment.
Absolutely. Now, Chandrayaan-4 marks the next ambitious step.
And what distinguishes Chandrayaan-4 from its predecessors? What are the primary scientific and technological objectives?
What makes Chandrayaan-4 particularly significant is that it marks India's first attempt at a lunar sample return mission.
Sample returns. That sounds complex.
Exceptionally complex. Currently, only the US, Russia, and China have successfully done this. Chandrayaan-4 will involve a sophisticated array of components, a lander, an ascent module to lift samples back into lunar orbit, and an Earth re-entry capsule to bring them safely back home for analysis.
Wow.
Notably, this mission involves collaboration with JAXA, the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, for some payload and robotic elements.
International collaboration, too.
Yes, and the launch is scheduled from Sriharikota using ISRO's powerful LVM-3 launch vehicle, the old GSLV MK-LE-3.
Got it. For our prelims audience, what are the key mission objectives and international collaborations associated with Chandrayaan-4 they should know?
Okay, prelims points. Primary objectives include collecting and returning lunar samples, specifically from the South Pole, testing and validating critical tech like the ascent module, in-orbit docking in lunar orbit, and the challenging Earth re-entry systems. Also, furthering scientific understanding of the moon's composition, thermal properties, volatiles. Remember other key ISRO missions like Mongolian, Mars, and the upcoming Gaganyaan human spaceflight.
Right.
The JXA collaboration is key for Chandrayaan-4, but ISRO often collaborates with others like France, Germany, Japan on instruments, and remember the LVM-3 launcher.
Shifting to the mains perspective, what is the broader strategic and scientific significance of the Chandrayaan-4 mission for India?
Building on Chandrayaan-3's success, Chandrayaan-4 elevates India's capabilities by tackling the highly complex sample return domain. Strategically, it enhances India's standing in global space diplomacy and contributes significantly to understanding potential lunar resources.
Lunar resources. Looking at.
Exactly. Relevant for future long-term space endeavors, lunar bases, resource utilization discussions. Scientifically, having pristine lunar materials for analysis on Earth will provide invaluable insights into the moon's geology, formation, and even clues about the early solar system.
What are some of the particularly significant technological and operational challenges ISRO will need to overcome for Chandrayaan-4? It sounds incredibly difficult.
Absolutely. Operating autonomously in the harsh, remote lunar environment is a major challenge set. Ensuring precise, reliable docking and sample transfer between modules and lunar orbit demands extremely sophisticated engineering and control. And developing a robust Earth re-entry capsule that can withstand the extreme heat of atmospheric re-entry and safely deliver the precious samples intact. That's a very complex technological feat.
Looking ahead then, what are some of the broader implications and the potential way forward for India's burgeoning space program?
Continued international collaborations and open sharing of scientific data will be crucial. Strengthening public-private partnerships within India's space sector can help accelerate innovation and commercialization.
Right, getting the private sector more involved.
Yes. Aligning these ambitious missions with well-defined long-term goals for lunar and planetary exploration ensures sustained progress. Actively engaging the public, fostering interest in space science is vital too. And finally, as we look towards potential resource utilization in space, developing appropriate legal and ethical frameworks to govern these activities will become increasingly important.
Chandrayaan-4 certainly sounds like a landmark mission, highly relevant for prelims under SciTech, SpaceTech, ISRO missions, and Maine's GS Paper 3, SciTech Achievements in Space.
Definitely. Our next topic shifts focus back to the domestic financial landscape. The RBI announced on April 22nd a comprehensive review of guidelines for urban cooperative banks, or UCBs. For our listeners, could you briefly explain what UCBs are and their role in the Indian financial system?
Sure, urban cooperative banks, UCBs, are financial institutions operating mainly in urban and semi-urban areas. They're structured as cooperative societies and generally cater to smaller borrowers, traders, lower to middle income groups.
So, more community-focused.
Exactly. They play a significant role in financial inclusion by reaching segments that might not have easy access to traditional commercial banks. Think community banks on cooperative principles.
And the Reserve Bank of India, the RBI, is the primary regulator here, right?
Yes, the RBI, as India's central bank, is the primary regulatory and supervisory body for all banks, including UCBs. It's worth recalling the Banking Regulation Amendment Act of 2020, which brought UCBs more directly under RBI's ambit, giving the central bank enhanced powers like superseding boards or forcing mergers in case of financial distress.
Right, that amendment was significant. So what's driving the RBI to undertake this comprehensive review of UCB guidelines now?
This review seems largely prompted by several instances of financial irregularities and mismanagement in the UCB sector recently. The PMC bank crisis was a very prominent example.
Ah, yes, that was major news.
It was. The RBI's primary objectives seemed to be strengthening the regulatory framework, potentially introducing stricter capital adequacy norms, enhancing corporate governance standards, and promoting tech adoption within these banks. The RBI also said it will consult stakeholders before finalizing the revised guidelines later this year.
Okay. For our prelims aspirants, what are some key characteristics of UCBs and their regulatory environment they should know?
Key prelims points. RBI categorizes UCBs into 4 tiers based on size and risk, allowing differentiated regulation. They're registered under State Cooperative Societies Acts, but banking operations are regulated by RBI under the Banking Regulation Act. This sometimes leads to dual control issues with state cooperative departments.
That dual control point is often mentioned.
Yes. There are many UCBs, mainly in urban, semi-urban areas, serving member shareholders. Recent regulatory developments, planned umbrella organization for UCBs for support like liquidity management, and the push for larger UCBs to implement core banking solutions, CBS.
Turning to the mains analysis, what are some fundamental challenges faced by UCBs and what's their strategic importance in the Indian economy?
Historically, UCBs have been crucial for financial inclusion, especially for urban lower-income groups, small traders, micro-enterprises. But they've faced challenges: weak corporate governance, inadequate risk management, the complexities of dual regulation. This sometimes led to poor transparency, political interference, delays in tech adoption, making some vulnerable and eroding public confidence.
Right. Despite these issues, UCBs still have significant potential for financial decentralization, supporting MSMEs and serving underserved communities via microfinance, etc.
Based on these challenges, what areas might the RBI focus on in its revised guidelines? What changes can we expect?
RBI is likely to focus on a more uniform, robust regulatory framework balancing cooperative principles with financial stability and depositor protection. Stricter fit and proper criteria for boards and senior management will likely be crucial.
Good governance is key.
Absolutely. Encouraging, maybe mandating, greater investment in cybersecurity and overall digitization will also probably be a priority. Promoting consolidation of weaker UCBs into stronger ones could be on the agenda too. Finally, strengthening grievance redressal for depositors and enhancing awareness about deposit insurance are important for bolstering public trust. This comprehensive review is undoubtedly significant for the financial sector, relevant for prelims under economy, banking reforms, financial institutions, and mains GS Paper 3, Indian economy, inclusive growth, banking sector.
Our next topic shines a light on India's rich artistic heritage. On April 22nd, the central government granted geographical indication, or GI, tags to 4 distinctive traditional crafts. For our listeners, could you explain what a GI tag signifies and why it's important?
Sure. A geographical indication, or GI tag, is essentially a form of intellectual property right. It's granted to products from a specific geographical area that possess qualities, reputation, or characteristics linked to that origin.
So it's about origin and unique quality.
Exactly. It signifies authenticity and quality. In India, it's protected under the GI Act of 1999. The GI registry in Chennai handles registration.
And which four crafts just received this recognition?
The four are the exquisite Kolhapuri Chapal embroidery variant from Maharashtra, the vibrant Patachitra masks from Odisha, the intricate Kuch Adrak block prints from Gujarat, and the unique Nongkrem bamboo craft from Meghalaya.
A diverse set from across the country.
Yes, and this recognition aligns with initiatives like the One District, One Product, ODOP scheme, and Make in India, aimed at empowering local artisans. These GI tags help preserve cultural identity and heritage, provide legal protection against imitation, and enhance marketability, both domestically and internationally.
For our prelims audience, what are some key facts about GI tags they should remember?
Okay, prelims facts. GI tag in India is valid for 10 years, then renewable. First product, Darjeeling tea, 2004, administered by the Controller General of Patents, Designs, and Trademarks. Legal basis, 1999 Act. Other recent examples, Mithila Makhana, Bihar, Basmati rice, specific varieties, Chanapatna toys, Karnataka, Thanjavur paintings, Tamil Nadu. Benefits, economic empowerment for artisans, better branding exports, legal protection against misuse.
Turning to the mains perspective, what's the broader context and relevance of actively promoting GI tags for traditional crafts across India?
Promoting GI tags is increasingly seen as vital for bolstering India's soft power and strengthening the rural economy where many crafts originate. Often, artisans lack direct market access, effective branding tools, and legal protection against counterfeiting. GI tags help address these gaps.
What are some key challenges in ensuring GI tags actually benefit the artisans and local economies? It's not just about getting the tag right.
Absolutely not. Challenges exist. Lack of awareness among artisans about the benefits and registration process is one. Many lack resources and expertise to effectively market their GI tagged products. Enforcement against counterfeit goods can be a significant hurdle, requiring monitoring and legal action.
Who are the primary stakeholders in this whole process?
Primary stakeholders are definitely the local artisans and craftspeople, their cooperatives, and any MSMEs involved in production and marketing. Government bodies, central and state, like Ministry of Commerce, DPIT, state handicrafts, corporations, play crucial roles in facilitation and support. Export promotion councils, rural development organizations, cultural preservation groups are also key.
What could be some effective ways forward to further promote and maximize the benefits of GI tags for traditional Indian crafts?
Comprehensive capacity building programs for artisans focusing on awareness, application process, marketing, business management are essential.
Okay.
Facilitating tie-ups with e-commerce platforms and retail chains for wider market access. Government support through procurement via GEM. Strengthening international recognition and protection under agreements like WTO's TRIPS is important for exports. And integrating GI craft promotion with tourism initiatives and rural development programs can create synergistic benefits and enhance sustainability. The promotion of GI tags is clearly relevant for UPSC. Prelims: Art and Culture, IPR, Schemes, Mains, GS Paper 1, Indian Culture, and GS Paper 3, IPR, Economy, Rural Development.
Our penultimate topic takes us to Karnataka, where the government recently cleared the Namarita digital portal for farmers, set to launch by June 2025. Tell us more about this portal.
Right, Namarita, meaning Our Farmer in Canada, is a new integrated digital portal from the Karnataka government. Its main objective is to be a comprehensive single-window platform for farmers, giving easy access to agriculture services, scheme info, real-time advisories, all digitally. It's part of the broader agritech push.
What specific features and services can farmers expect from Namarita?
It's designed to be holistic. Farmers can access info on subsidies and schemes, apply online, get timely weather forecasts, crop advisories, access soil health card info, real-time market prices, pest disease warnings.
So bringing everything together in one place.
Exactly. The aim is to replace the current fragmented system of multiple apps and websites with a unified, user-friendly interface. It'll also integrate with the Farmer Distress Helpline and Krishi Mela events for a seamless experience.
For our prelims audience, what are the key features of Namarita and the important national schemes it might link to?
Key prelims features: multilingual, Canada English, Aadhaar-based authentication for personalized services, integration with various schemes, crop insurance, subsidies, credit, Access to INAMIMEM info for market linkages,
Hmm.
important national schemes likely linked. PM Kisan, KCC, Soil Health Card, PM Faisal Bima Yojana, PMFBY, and the broader Digital Agriculture Mission. Also be aware of related terms. E-governance in agriculture, AgriStack, CSEs, Common Service Centers.
Turning to the main's perspective, why develop a unified platform like Namarita in Karnataka, and what benefits does it aim to deliver?
Karnataka has been relatively progressive in agritech, but farmers face navigating a fragmented landscape of different apps and websites. Namarita aims to fix this fragmentation, especially helping small marginal farmers. It also seeks to bridge digital literacy gaps and ensure timely access to critical info, weather, prices, pests. By providing a single access point, it intends to empower farmers for better decision-making, allow officials to monitor schemes better, and facilitate more targeted interventions.
What potential challenges might hinder its widespread adoption and effective use by farmers across Karnataka?
Significant challenges include varying digital literacy levels, especially among older farmers or those in remote areas. Reliable internet connectivity and affordable devices in rural regions are critical.
Data privacy, too.
Yes, legitimate concerns about data privacy and security need robust safeguards. User adoption, getting farmers to switch from traditional methods, will require sustained outreach and support.
What proactive steps could ensure Namarayat achieves its goals and truly benefits Karnataka's farmers?
Comprehensive digital literacy campaigns tailored for farmers using local languages. Efforts to improve last-mile internet connectivity. Robust feedback mechanisms, accessible helplines, local support centers are crucial.
Okay.
Periodic performance audits, transparency in data use and service delivery are important. Collaborations with agricultural universities, FPOs, NGOs can help with outreach, training, and on-ground support. The Namarita portal underscores technology's growing role in agriculture, highly relevant for prelims, agriculture, schemes, e-governance, and Maine's GS Paper 3, Agriculture, E-Governance, Inclusive Technology.
Our final news item today takes us to international relations in the Indo-Pacific. On April 22nd, China's PLA conducted large-scale military drills near Taiwan. What was the stated reason?
China stated these extensive air and naval exercises were a direct response to what it called provocations from Taiwan's recent increased interactions with Western countries. The drills involved warships, fighter jets, simulated missile strikes, clearly a demonstration of force and Beijing's displeasure.
What was the immediate reaction from Taiwan and key international players?
Taiwan strongly condemned the drills as intimidation and a threat to regional peace. Taipei monitored the PLA closely and placed its forces on high alert. Several key players, the U.S., Japan, Australia, issued statements expressing concern over the escalation and urging restraint, emphasizing peace and stability in the Taiwan Strait.
For our prelims audience, could you provide some essential background on Taiwan's political status and the China-Taiwan tensions?
Okay, prelims background. Taiwan, Republic of China, ROC, is self-governed, democratic, but lacks widespread international recognition or UN membership. Tensions stem from the Chinese Civil War, ended 1949. The Communist Party on the mainland views Taiwan as a renegade province it intends to control, possibly by force. Key frameworks. One China policy, diplomatically acknowledged by many, including India. U.S.'s Taiwan Relations Act commits U.S. to help Taiwan maintain self-defense. The QUAD, India, U.S., Japan, Australia, focuses on Indo-Pacific security. Recent context includes increased Chinese military incursions into Taiwan's ADZ and Taiwan's efforts to modernize its defenses.
Turning to the main's perspective, what's the overarching strategic significance of Taiwan, and what are the broader implications of these military drills?
Taiwan holds immense strategic significance. It's home to TSMC, the world's leading semiconductor manufacturer, critical for global tech.
Semiconductor angle is huge.
Absolutely. Control over the Taiwan Strait is vital for global shipping and Indo-Pacific stability. For India, while we follow the One China policy, we have growing unofficial ties with Taiwan. India generally emphasizes freedom of navigation and peaceful dispute resolution. These drills highlight China's assertive posture, raising concerns for Taiwan, Southeast Asia, and the QAD. The Taiwan Strait is widely seen as a potential U.S.-China flashpoint.
What are potential pathways forward for de-escalating tensions and managing this complex situation?
Strengthening diplomatic channels and dialogues between China and Taiwan are essential to reduce miscalculation risks. Major global powers must consistently advocate for confidence-building measures. Regional bodies like ASEAN and platforms like CRI and the UN can promote a rules-based order and peaceful resolution. For India, it likely involves maintaining strategic autonomy while enhancing maritime cooperation with like-minded nations for regional stability and secure sea lanes. The Taiwan situation is critical geopolitically, relevant for prelims, IR, world geography, and mains GS Paper 2, IR, and GS Paper 3, security.
Our final topic today carries a significant global health warning. On April 22nd, UNME issued a global alert about the alarming rise of antimicrobial resistance, or AMR. For our listeners, could you explain what AMR is and why it's such a serious threat?
Sure. Antimicrobial resistance, AMR, is when microorganisms, bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites evolve to resist medications that used to work against them. This makes infections harder, sometimes impossible to treat, leading to longer illness, disability, and higher death rates. The emergence of superbugs resistant to multiple antibiotics is particularly concerning.
Mhm.
AMR threatens to undo decades of medical progress, making common infections and routine procedures much riskier.
The UNEP report projects a potential 10 million annual deaths by 2050 if AMR isn't tackled. What are the primary factors driving this increase?
UNME highlights several drivers. Overuse and misuse of antibiotics in human medicine is major. Widespread use in livestock and agriculture, often for growth promotion, not just treating disease, is another big concern.
Right, the agricultural use is often overlooked.
It is. Poor infection prevention and control in healthcare settings spreads resistant microbes. Environmental contamination from pharmaceutical waste also contributes. The report emphasizes the burden is rising rapidly in developing countries.
For our prelims audience, what are key causes of AMR and important national initiatives to combat it?
Key prelims causes: overuse, misuse, human animals, growth promoters, livestock, poor infection control, environmental contamination. Important reports bodies: GLASS, WHO's Global AMR Surveillance System; India's National Action Plan on AMR 2017, UN Interagency Group on AMR, examples of AMR infections, MDR-TB, XDR Salmonella, MRSA, SURE. Briefly, resistance happens via genetic mutation or acquiring resistance genes.
Turning to the mains perspective, what specific challenges does India face with AMR and what are the broader global implications?
India faces significant challenges: large population, high infectious disease burden, widespread over-the-counter antibiotic availability. Weak regulatory oversight in pharma can contribute. Consequences of unchecked AMR in India: increased illness death, higher healthcare costs, longer hospital stays, potential threat to food security, resistant infections in livestock. Globally, AMR is a major threat to public health security and sustainable development, linked to SDGs. Addressing it needs concerted international cooperation across sectors.
What crucial steps need to be taken, both in India and globally, to effectively combat this rising threat?
Stricter regulations on antibiotic prescription dispensing, ending over-the-counter sales is critical. Significantly strengthening AMR surveillance systems, national, state, local, to track resistance patterns, promoting public awareness and education, general public and healthcare professionals, on responsible antibiotic use. Urgent need for more investment in R&D for new antibiotics and alternatives. Finally, fostering robust global collaboration, especially under the One Health approach, linking human, animal, environmental health, and through forums like G20 Health Track, is vital. The issue of AMR is critical, relevant for prelims, health, environment, international bodies like UNP, WHO, and mains GS Paper 2, Health and Governance, and GS Paper 3, Science and Environment.
That brings us to the conclusion of our in-depth analysis of these significant news developments. It's certainly a lot to consider, underscoring the interconnected nature of the challenges and opportunities facing us today.
Indeed. From social justice and tech advancement to environmental sustainability and global security, these topics highlight the diverse and crucial areas that UPSC aspirants need to engage with.
Subscribe for daily updates and drop a comment to share your thoughts. Download the audio or transcript for revision. Jai Hind.